My name is Tricia Glass. I'm Executive Director at Quiet Communities, and it's great to be with you this afternoon for this QC Close-Up member event with today's special guest, Rick Reibstein. He's the chair of our Quiet Communities Legal Advisory, and he's going to be speaking today on noise and the law. QC founder and president Jamie Banks will be moderating, and she'll introduce Rick.
Okay, thank you, Trish. We're delighted to have Rick here to talk about noise and the law. I just want to mention that this is a very tricky issue. We have no federal legislation. We really have a scarcity of effective state and local legislation to control noise, and every problem is different. Depending on the source, depending on the impact, depending on the locality. So Rick is going to be talking about some of the law challenges that people face in trying to get attention to their problem from their local officials all the way to attorneys. And he'll be giving examples of some of the complaints that we have dealt with and communities that we have been trying to assist. And he won't be able to discuss those in that much detail, except to mention a few case examples. We will be having programs that focus on cases. So stay tuned for that. So as Trish mentioned, Rick chairs our Legal Advisory Council. He's an environmental lawyer and the former manager of the state of Massachusetts Toxic Use Reduction Program. Prior to that, he worked at the US EPA. He was the recipient of the EPA's Individual Environmental Merit Award in 2000 and received the National Pollution Prevention Roundtable's Pollution Prevention Champion Award. That's a mouthful. In 2015. Rick did the original plain language petition to the EPA from Quiet Communities to reactivate the Noise Control Act. And Quiet Communities then followed up with a formal petition and a lawsuit that some of you may know about. Rick is a senior lecturer at Boston University. He formerly also taught at Harvard Extension School. QC has worked with Rick's students at BU over several years addressing real noise problems, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to continue that in the future. And as I mentioned, he volunteers with us. He assists individuals and communities who have come to us suffering from noise. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Trish, and thank you all who have come. And this is such an important issue, and so few people actually pay attention to it, unless, of course, they're suffering from it. I wanted to just show you, this is a class that I teach, and as an example of what the students have done, students went through the complaints that QC has received. So here is, this website will be shared with you, and you can see the breakdown of complaints, transportation, industrial noise, lawn care, and neighborhood, all major categories. And some of the stories of people suffering from noise are at that website, written up by the students who have interviewed them. So, but I want to go into more general comments, which is what I've been asked to do today, and talk about this difficulty of dealing with these people who are suffering when we do not have an adequate system of response at law. I really don't know any other way to put it except that our, let me say that again, our response at law is inadequate. Okay, so just a little background. I started working with Quiet Communities after doing most of my career was helping companies. I would visit factories and help them reduce their impacts on the neighborhood. Now, usually they would ask me because someone was pressuring them. And usually it was chemical use and hazardous waste and things like that. But sometimes it was odors and noise. And what I found was that all of these things were the same. You basically can get a long way by taking an assistance approach. Rather than attacking somebody and saying, why are you doing this to everybody? You come in and you say, why is this happening? Can we take a look at this? I'm here to help. And by the way, my office gave confidential help, so people were not afraid of us. And then we might have to bring in experts to take a look at situations. And there was often a connection between energy efficiency and noise, like an air compressor would be emitting sounds because it was losing air and losing a lot of energy and money at the same time. So, and there's often a connection with noise and pollution, and leaf blowers are the best example. So anyway, when I was retired from the state, somebody connected me with Jamie, and my approach was always, I like to work on things that nobody else is working on. That was sort of what I did at the state. If nobody was dealing with the toxic effects of spray foam, then I would do a conference on toxicity, reducing toxicity in spray foam. So I said, wow, somebody is doing something about this horrible problem. Now, why did I think it was a horrible problem? Because I'm tortured by lawn leaf blowers. Yes, just like everybody else. But the reason I think it's a horrible problem is from my experience of working with people in factories and working with worker exposure. And when I see those guys, usually men, I don't think I've ever seen a woman with a gas engine on their back with all that product of incomplete combustion just poisoning them, I get enraged. So I was happy to work on that problem. And again, it's because of the connection between noise and other issues. And one of the first things that we noticed when Jamie and I started talking about this was that there was a big fight happening in Newton and many other places. People were battling over this. They were enraged about leaf blowers destroying their peace, and they were seeking bans. They were banning them, and they had done that after a big fight. But it was sort of a Pyrrhic victory where people were just angry and the police weren't really enforcing it. Yeah, it made things a little bit better, but was there a better way to go about this? Now, in my job at the Office of Technical Assistance, we had demonstrated that better way. So I talked to Jamie about that, and we basically implemented that approach going forward, which she was totally already doing anyway. The reason I was so attracted to working with Jamie, besides the fact that she brings so much talent and experience and communication abilities, but also the first I'd heard of what she had done was she had arranged demonstrations of electrical lawn care at Wellesley College. I had never even heard of Quiet Communities at this point, and I already knew about that demonstration event, which for me is the perfect way you address a problem. You don't just say, stop using this thing. You tell people, this is a better thing to do. You can't get people to stop doing bad habits just by telling them don't, no, like Nancy Reagan did, just say no. You have to actually help them cultivate things that are good for them that substitute for the thing that was not good. So people need to be educated, and I thought that that was the right approach. If you don't do that, you can risk creating a conflict the first time you raise the issue. If you're not careful, you can say something that makes everybody think, oh my God, they're going to steal our freedom. They're going to take away our right to do this and to do that. And these people are out to squelch us. If you don't approach this right, that's the kind of knee-jerk reaction you can get right off the bat. So one of the things that we did was I actually was one of the people who helped the state of Massachusetts create an environmentally preferable purchasing program. So the people at the Office of I forget what OSD stands for, it doesn't matter. That's where they do the purchasing. And they knew me. And so they were happy to have me come in and bring Jamie and tell them about these electrical lawn care equipment. Now, the reason this is so important is I back up a little bit. You see, I said Concord there. Before this, Jamie and I had been to a meeting in Concord where people were discussing doing something about the leaf blowers. And of course, the contractors were scared that that would ruin their lives. And they were angry as hell. And it was a very angry confrontation at that meeting. And one of the things that was said was, we tried the electrical equipment, it's junk, doesn't work. So actually, what we did with the purchasing program was vet through AGSA, the American Green Zone Alliance, was create specs for equipment that would be good. It was the first time any government contracting agency had done that. 6 states followed through. And it helped towns and others see, oh, there are electrical equipment. There is electrical equipment out there that could work. We took that information to my local DPW and some others. We took it to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and other places like that. And we said, look, they're out there, that they're working, and some of the DPWs have agreed to try them out. Um, uh, what's the Tower Botanical Gardens agreed to try them out, and these are places where, when those places demonstrate the electrical equipment, others see them. So, for example, Tower Botanical Garden has educational events where people then learned about. So that's how we were operating. Now, I just want to say that in Lexington, it's a good example. We took this approach. We didn't go for a ban. We went for education. We did demonstration sites. We had all these events. We even got our local representative to get some money to give to contractors to help them switch over. All of that stuff enabled us to win when we had a town ordinance, a battle over a town ordinance, to phase out over 3 years, give them time for the useful life of the equipment, of a gas blower to be done, give them some time and get them ready and give them notice. And then we won, and then there was an effort to overturn it. And then we had to do that battle again. So even with all of that, it's hard. Okay. That's just an example of how we started, and it's a general description of how we approached the leaf blower issue, which is actually pretty effective. We approached another similar issue, lead from aircraft, leaded aviation gas. And we took the same approach there. We had a conference where we brought people together, tried to defuse conflict and say we're all in the same space looking for the same thing, which is how we get lead out as fast as we can. It's not you against us. It's we're all trying to do this. And that approach, it has something to recommend it. It doesn't always lead to immediate solutions. I don't want to give the wrong impression. What we are working against while we're doing this, trying to call on people's good faith, trying to draw attention to better things that could be done that won't be harming other people, we are working within a vacuum. So, I mean, I'm not going to give you the whole history, but in the 60s, there was a Surgeon General's report and a whole lot of activity about noise. It was recognized as a real important problem. And in the passage of the major environmental laws, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, noise was included. And we had the Noise Act in as part of the Clean Air Act as a form of air pollution. We had a very effective program for a decade, the Office of Noise Abatement and Control. And then in the rage to find things to deregulate and defund and lower taxes, Reagan in his first year got rid of ONAC. And it was part of this, we've got to cut things, much like what you see Trump having done now. But in Reagan's case, he went after things that didn't have a whole lot of supporters and had some people like motorcycle companies that don't like it. So he made some people happy and other people weren't paying enough attention. He got rid of this fabulous program. Now, what we lost as a nation was we lost all the education that could have come from that was coming from that, all the funding for research. We lost regulations that would have prevented a lot of harm to hearing. We lost the advance of product labeling, which was happening. And we lost, I think, most importantly, the technical assistance. So some of the complaints we have is we have on the right here, you see a log kept by Jamie Lutz, who lives next to a mine shaft ventilation in Kentucky. And it, for some reason, started to get really loud. I don't know the real reason for that, but we suspect that it's because they are digging deeper and they have to pull harder to get these things ventilated. This is just an example of what happens when people are suffering from noise and they go to their local officials. They don't know what to do, or they don't want to go up against somebody like a coal company. They go to their county officials. They go to their state officials. They go to their federal officials. They eventually learn about all of these laws, the Kentucky Noise Ordinance and the Noise Control Acts that are on the federal level, and they find that they're unable to get any official to do anything about them. And they find that the Office of Noise Abatement and Control doesn't exist, although the law is still there. It's a very strange experience. If you are suffering from noise, the noise source is failing to do anything about it, and then officials are doing nothing about it. It's like you're drowned in silence, which is an ironic way to be suffering from noise. Okay, noise is sometimes addressed on the local level as something, for the police. Like there's a noisy party, send the police out there. Yes, of course, there are times when you need the police. At a noisy party at 2 a.m, you need the police. For a leaf blower, you don't need the police. For the industrial source that is making your life miserable, you do not need the police. These are public health problems. If you give this to the police, like so many places do, they don't address them effectively. They don't know how. What you need is somebody like a public health expert who will study a problem and look at the options and educate people and take preventive action and deal with it as something that is affecting a neighborhood. Usually we have one person who speaks up and a lot of other people are afraid to speak up. Now we really do need to spend a moment understanding that noise is not just an annoyance, and our medical information is increasing. Our understanding of the harm of noise is evolving, and it's evolving rather rapidly, actually, because scholars, scientists are understanding, hey, this is like I did when I said this is something nobody else is doing that needs to be done, that people aren't looking at. That's what's happening in the scientific world, and they're beginning to look at this, and they're seeing that we have tremendous impacts. Now, what we have up here is from a few years ago, and what we have here, where cardiovascular disease is of a special note and concern for people, and that's a very serious new area. The American Public Health Association policy statement, not in 2021-15, but in, I think, 2021, 15, noise is a public health hazard. I'm referring to what it says on the page. Is a good reference. There is also a new definition of noise, which is becoming more widely accepted, which is that it is sound that has a harmful impact. Now, we need to think about noise not just as something that bothers someone, and not just their problem, but as something that is bothering a lot of people, affecting their health seriously. It is not a subjective problem. It is an objective problem. And there's measurements you can take to establish that, but you don't even need to do that when you have a whole neighborhood complaining of not being able to sleep. Now, if ONAC had not been defunded, we would have continued to have for decades the regional noise technical centers that they had established. And just as an example, when I was called upon to help, when I was asked to help this woman in Ohio who lives next to a steel mill, which is creating a lot of noise because of some process that I don't really understand, it would have been so great if I could call on Regional Noise Technical Center experts to go in there and help the steel mill find out how it could abate its noise. If those things had continued to be and were used by everyone and were there would be no hesitation. I think they would have established ways that they could go in and the steel mill would accept them. ONAC had held hundreds of workshops. It had developed the local information system to evaluate noise, and it had created ECHO, very clever acronyms, by the way. Having worked in government, I have a keen appreciation for them. Each community helps others. So in Lexington, where we figured out, and we did win our ordinance because it was better to do it as a phase out than as a ban. And when we did all the efforts to help contractors and educate them, it'd be great if there was someone who could then transport that model and teach other communities how to do that. Now, we're just volunteers. If it was a federal program, it would happen efficiently and quickly. And of course, technical standards for making things quieter, which they were in the process of developing. So when Reagan defunded ONAC, they saved pennies in taxes. They saved a little bit. And, Musk talks about getting rid of the waste and fraud in government. It was a fraud to say that ONAC was a waste of taxpayers' money. It was an extremely good investment of taxpayers' money. And the impacts, not just the cardiovascular and our hearing and our loss of sleep, but children's learning. This has been well established. Cognitive development, people's ability to just be in a good mood, chronic noise, heart attack, stroke, sleep disruption. Okay. And these conditions are still there because the federal law is not observed. The knowledge and the resources that they built up over the first decade are not being used. And local officials do not know what to do. So when the woman in Ohio or the woman in Kentucky, both of whom came to us after years of trying to get local officials to understand that this is something they need to address, that probably wouldn't have happened because local officials might have known what to do with a federal program having continued for those decades. Now, if we restored ONAC, things would be better. And remind you, QC has sued EPA to restore ONAC. And we have on our legal advisory committee the man who ran ONAC during that decade, Chuck Elkins. So we have some really spectacular help with this effort, but don't hold your breath. Not right away anyway. Until that time, what can you do? And it sounds pretty namby-pamby, but it is a very intelligent thing to make your first step to appeal to the good faith of the offending source. Now, it may be that you already have a terrible relationship. They've already revealed themselves as caring nothing about you and having no intention of acting in good faith. But if that is not the case, and if that's the case, and you're suffering, we go right to legal action. But if that's not the case, this is a better way to start, and it prepares you better for legal action if that is what happens. Now, what is it you want to do with the source? You want an investigation into the root cause. You don't want to say, shut that thing down. You don't want them to get all, oh, he's going to shut us down. This person is a danger to our operations. You don't want that as the first reaction. You want, hey, can we figure out why this is making so much noise? And you can also bring up this idea of, hey, maybe it's because of some energy efficiency. Maybe if we address it, we'll find energy efficiencies, we'll find savings in cost, because usually noise is happening because of something inefficient. Just think about a fan that's making a lot of noise because of the friction. And let's see if we can't find out why the process is so noisy. Now, if you do it that way, they also think, oh, maybe I'll get away without having to build a sound structure, because the first thing they think of is, oh, they're going to shut us down. Second thing they think of is, oh, they're going to make us build something around it, soundproofing, and it'll cost a lot of money. Oh, and I may have to hire sound experts. So they're thinking money, money, money. There are places where people can get free help. There are university programs that come in and help you with your industrial development. There are government programs like mine that provide confidentiality that will help with pollution and energy efficiency and reducing impacts on neighbors. And there are also people like ombudsmen in government who can help that company realize they need to get cracking on this. So you get people to talk to them for you. And that's what you should be saying to your local officials when they don't know what to do. Say, could you please call them up and ask them to do an investigation into the root cause? And if they have any way of helping, help them and try to connect them with people who can help them do that. Now, if the appeal to good faith doesn't work, then to eliminate it, then you are basically talking about you want maybe this mitigation effort to be ordered. But the first thing you want to do is raise that. And get out this idea that they have a responsibility to look into ways to avoid impacting you. Part of this also is making them understand the impact. Okay. So what we're hoping this works. It may not. You may be finding it, looking for an attorney. Now, we've been at that stage with many people, and it's hard to find attorneys. Attorneys don't normally see a way to make money on this. So you may be able to help them. So they're going to want to have the evidence. So get started documenting. Now, this is the same thing that the local officials will want as well. Everybody wants this. They need the proof. So document the problem, the impacts in your efforts. You could use noise meters. There are apps that you can download for free. I can show you a little bit about that. And then there are soundscapes that you can create with, like, you can make sound maps. So if you have a neighborhood issue, everybody could be using these. You put the data together, and that's some of your evidence. What you don't want is for the public health official to come out to your place and take a snapshot, like maybe when the noise is not happening, and say, well, I came out there and there was no problem, and then they go away. You need the data logger over time and make that soundscape. You need to document the impacts. Are people losing sleep? And are they going to the doctor? And what does the doctor say? Make sure you have that information. And everything that the source says to you and what you say to the source, you need to keep a record. So going back to what I said, if your record shows that you started with good faith and you expected good faith from them, this is going to help you. It's going to help you in many ways, partly because the attorney wants to make you look good. The attorney isn't going to take your case if they think you can't win it. You need to be an attractive person. You need to look like you're reasonable and responsible. You don't want to look like you're unreasonable. And so that's going to help you. Now, I'm going to talk later about nuisance, but I don't remember if I make this point, so I'll make it now. In nuisance, you weigh two things, basically. You weigh the gravity of the harm to the plaintiff against the utility of the action that is complained of. And in both of those, you're looking at reasonable. Is it reasonable for this impact to be happening? Is the actor acting reasonably in creating the noise? And are you being unreasonable in your response? So reasonableness and showing good faith is going to be very important for winning a nuisance case, as well as all that documentation which shows it and which shows the harm. Now, so you're strategizing with the attorney. Just don't go to the attorney expect, unless they've been doing noise, they're not going to know what to do, like those local officials. So you're in a better position if you've been thinking about all of this, including giving them the scientific definition, documentation, all the latest articles, backing up the fact that this is causing very serious harm. And now, when you go in there, know what you want. What do you want? You want them to buy you out? You're going to leave all your neighbors behind and you're going to go to a sunny place if they give you a good price? Or are you going to fight for your hometown and all your poor neighbors who are too chicken to stand up for themselves, but you love them anyway? And you're not going to run away. Know what it is you want before you go in there. That's what any lawyer will tell you. It will help you. Now, another thing to think about is you may be going in there thinking, I don't care what happens to them, just stop this thing happening to me. It may be possible, even though you're in such a bad situation, to do mediation. Now, in mediation, you save a lot of money. You find out what their issues are. If they agree to mediation, you state your issues, they state your issues. There may be room for agreement, but the reason why mediation is so good here is I'm assuming that in most cases, they're just recalcitrant. They're just defensive. They're just got their back up and they think they don't have to be responsible to you. Mediation will at least clarify that, yes, they have some responsibility to you. What it is, we don't know, we maybe can't agree on, but you want to establish that principle. There is some responsibility here. Now, what is it? But it is the question. But moving forward, people don't necessarily accept that as a first principle. So also, while you're engaged in this adversarial process, continue to talk about helping them to find a way to mitigate the problem and stress that this may be good for you to do these things, to do this investigation. Again, you'll find the nexus with and reduce pollution and waste and energy waste and all of that. Now, that's your own case if you have one. And if you do, I hope you're not suffering too much. Um, and in the meantime, before we get a federal program established, here's just some political things that maybe you could think of doing. Depends on what you like to do with your time. I don't know why I like to do this with my time, but I do. Maybe you do too. You could petition your state to provide community assistance. Okay, the federal own act isn't there doing it. Maybe your state sees the point in doing it because it's a serious public health problem, and you improve the economy and the health of people if you address it effectively. Now, if you could pass a law that enabled attorneys to make a little money taking these cases, that would be great. You could call your state bar association and ask them to provide continuing education on noise and noise law. You don't have to be a lawyer to do this. You can say, look, they don't know how to these cases. I can't get anyone to take my case on noise. Nobody knows. You guys need to learn how to do these cases. Enact effective local noise ordinances on the local level. Petition local and regional governments to hire those experts. This is what we need. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, I worked in an office. We had, by the way, the office has been pretty much defunded because of all of this. It's down to a shell of its former self. But we had, during our heyday, 35 people, scientists and engineers, who were experts in industrial process and environmental issues and the law, and they were available for free confidential assistance to companies, and they were used all the time, extremely popular, and they reduced hundreds of millions of pounds of toxic use in Massachusetts. These programs work. Pollution prevention assistance programs, energy assistance programs, all kinds of programs like that have been across the country. Now, the tax revolts have, and the conservative revolt has pretty much decimated them, but they have been demonstrated as working. Okay. Find ways to articulate this responsibility of the source. The impacting source has a responsibility to investigate means to reduce the impact. This is what you can stress to lawmakers. For some of our sufferers, we have called on their local officials and we have met with them and said, this is what you can ask for, because they don't know what to do. They call up the company says, we've done everything we can do, and that's it. We say, no, if you've really done anything, you give us a report. It could get to that. You're demanding a report on what it is they did. First step is to say, bring in a fresh pair of eyes, somebody outside, and make sure that legislators are really informed about this issue. You can go down to the to the State House, and you can walk to the offices of representatives. And if they're not there, you can talk to staff and you can tell them we need legislation on this. Now, after public officials have failed to help, which is the general story, we have some that have tried. For example, the Ohio EPA, state EPA, has an official who is trying. You can actually, but if they completely put you off, which is a not uncommon story, you can contact the municipal legal counsel or the state attorney general and ask them, look, where's the responsibility to enforce the law? Because there will likely be a state law, and forget the federal law for now, but why is this unaddressed? Isn't there a responsibility when the law's on the books that someone has to enforce it? Ask them that. And a failure to take the action is a violation of duty. Now, if by chance you got an opinion from the attorney general that sort of says yes, then you can go to court and get a court to order the official to take action. But hopefully we're going to just get that idea out there. You can go to court yourself and ask for an order, and you can go to court yourself and sue. Probably better to get an attorney to help you do all of the above. Kind of depends on your source. you might have a source who is a kind of a neighbor, and the fact that you have failed to get anywhere by discussing things, starting with good faith presumption, but you've got nowhere. Um, just saying I'm ready to go to court could have an effect, or you just going to court with a small claims court might work. Depends on who it is. For the Cleveland Cliffs steel mill, small claims is not going to work. And see, we need to get an attorney to sue. Now, if they take it on contingency, you don't have to pay unless they win, but that's only going to happen if they think they can win, which is why we want to actually look at state laws that will make it easier for them to win. Most people don't understand this, but state legislation can affect how trial cases go forward. Okay, so we want to look at nuisance first and foremost. I should tell you all that I'm not actually a litigator. I spent 3 years in enforcement, but that was regulatory enforcement. And so I haven't been in court, but I do have to teach the law, so I know a little bit about it. Nuisance varies from state to state, so that's one thing to understand. And as I said before, it involves subjectivity and interpretation. So the more objective facts you have, that's why this noise apps and the soundscapes is really a fabulous thing. They're going to weigh this. And the history of nuisance is people suffering from a nearby factory and the court saying, we're not going to shut that factory down. It's too important for the economy and it has 30,000 jobs. We can't shut it down. And the breakthrough in that stalemate was, okay, we can order a mitigation. We can order them to put on some air pollution equipment, things like that. So that's where we need to get to. We need to be thinking not that this is not something we can't deal with, but that there are many, many things we can do. As I said, my job at the state was to go into a factory and try to solve these problems. And you would say, and people would think, well, how are you going to figure this out? You don't run the factory, you don't know anything. It's the fresh pair of eyes. You walk in and you see stuff on the floor and you go, why is that oil on the floor? And people look at it for the first time. They've never noticed the oil on the floor before. I am telling you the truth. You need people come in every day and they get the product out the door the same way they've been doing it. You need that fresh pair of eyes. And more likely than not, solutions will be found. Now, they may not be final, but they may be mitigative. Okay, so just one example. One neighborhood we were trying to help was plagued by a generator at a government office, and the generator would go off at any time and wake everybody up. So we said, well, you could get a battery wall that would be completely silent. You could put the generator on the other side of the which is what I think they were going to do. But they didn't do it for a long time, and they were still waking people up. So we said, in the meantime, we just tell people when you're going to turn it on so that they know and they're not surprised. So there are always things you can do. Another place, people were being woken up by backup trucks in the middle of the night. They say, in the middle of the night, if there's nobody else in the lot and it's just the backup truck with nobody else there, why don't you just not turn off the warning? Although it's required to have some kind of warning, use lights instead. All right. Anyway, there's things you can do is what I'm saying. One of the important issues here is that, say, Cleveland Cliffs or the coal mine, they think we have the property right to do our business. And the source always thinks about their property right to do their business. Well, you have a property right not to be driven out of your home by this intrusion. Noise is not an annoyance. And in the law, the term means an unreasonable interference with your right to use and enjoy your own property. The fact that we now know that it is a harm to health and well-being, and we have the medical means, helps show that it helps establish that it's unreasonable. And now we think of it as unwanted and or harmful sound. And you have the right to be where you are. It's not, you don't have to own the property. If you have the right to work there and you're being disturbed, that's a property right. There's some other things that we could think about. And again, I'm not a litigator, so I don't really know how real this is. But I always think you should be able to sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress once you have told them how they are torturing you and they know full well and they take no action whatsoever. I would wonder, can't we sue for that? And I think involving the public health agents, of course, is is absolutely important. And you want to try to get them there. Even if they're not responding, you inform them of everything you're doing. And you develop your evidence and you remind the public official of their responsibilities. Keep your cool. It's a sort of a cardinal law, and I learned this in government because in government you're being attacked from all sides. And if you can't keep your cool, you will lose. So you have to keep your cool, and that will make everyone respect you and possibly side with you. So always be optimistic that a solution can be found and keep your focus on the search for solutions so that it's not us against them. It's we all need to find a solution. And
So Rick, I'm
yes,
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. We're just running a little short on time. I know we have, I think 3 questions altogether. So I know you just have a couple slides left. If you could go through them quickly.
I will.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
thing cool is the same. Keep it civil and dispassionate. State the facts. The reason this is pretty much just repetitive here. Call them out on their failure to address the problem without antagonizing them. Now, can I tell you how to do that? No, that's an art. You're going to have to figure that one out yourself. Everyone has to approach this, but that's sort of the puzzle that I'm always trying to do and do it that way. Even if they're not, I act like they want to act in good faith and I'm addressing them that way all the time. And if they don't go show good faith, you want to point that out without, again, antagonizing them, just stating facts. Um, and the nexus is very important. In Utah Physicians versus Harley Davidson, this is a case that won. They got the motorcycle people to stop removing those horrible things that make the motorcycles loud, and Harley Davidson was complicit. And first of all, they used a sound camera, which is very interesting, and this is a great sound camera to use. But secondly, it wasn't the noise that won the case. It was the thing that the noise had a nexus with. It was the pollution. Okay.
Okay, Rick, thank you so much. We have a couple of things here. Okay, I'm just going to read them in order. So from Julie, do you think there's value in collaborating with Green Amendment for the generations? The language of many state amendments don't explicitly list people's right to a healthy soundscape.
Well, yeah, you and I both took that agenda. We tried to build noise into other environmental agendas. So Jamie and I both spoke before the National Environmental Justice Advisory Council twice to recommend that they include noise. And so that's like a collaboration. And also, there's an effort in some states to look at what's called cumulative impact. So it's not just looking at each pollutant one by one, but you look at them all together. That's actually the real way to understand impact in a neighborhood. And so a number of states are doing this cumulative impact process. How do we do that? And they weren't including noise. So I suggested on a couple of occasions during the public hearings and in comments, you should include noise and in other meetings. You know what? It still hasn't happened. So we have a lot of work to do.
Okay, Rick, thank you. David says, Rick, you need to explain why noise is only treated as a nuisance or annoyance in law. Why shouldn't people push for treating it as a public health issue? That's what the people out in Washington state have been doing. It's unlocked both research funding and legislation.
Well, I totally agree with that. It should be pushed as a public health issue. Absolutely. That's what I think. Was there some other part of that question that I'm not addressing?
It was more, I think, more a statement, but
Yeah,
certainly what they're doing out in Washington state, they might be a good
yeah,
close-up to have.
yeah,
We could invite them.
yeah. That sounds great.
Okay, we have a couple more. Let's see what we can get to. From Amy, thank you for your excellent presentation. I'm working on an initiative called, I think it's New Hampshire Hears. The new website is newhampshirehears.org, in part to help New Hampshire communities understand how noise affects communication. The goal is also to educate communities about how a lifetime of noise contributes to hearing loss and the responsibility of communities to mitigate this in public spaces, for instance, loud music. In your experience, have any municipalities addressed this with legislation? It's a challenge in the live free or die state.
Yeah, so I just want to say I go hiking in New Hampshire all the time, and I crave the quiet of New Hampshire mountains, and so do all the animals. And the effect, we haven't mentioned the effect of noise on biological creatures, ecological impacts of noise are very considerable. So if you care about wildlife, that's an important issue. Um, and it's a good time probably to mention Les Blomberg's noise pollution clearinghouse, which lists all the municipal ordinances that he could find. And so there's a lot of good information in there. And I would comb through that before doing my own ordinance. Also, ONAC at one point, the Office of Noise Abatement and Control, wrote up a model ordinance, which I actually don't have a copy of it, but I remember reading about that they had written up a model ordinance. So those are things that might be helpful.
Okay, great. So Jay has a suggestion, and thank you, Jay. I'm just putting it also in the chat. He says, consider engaging NoiseNet at noisenet.com. They do noise monitoring. My mayor and I, it would be great, Jay, if you could put your location into the chat. My mayor and I interviewed at length that organization to help deal with traffic noise. The company seems qualified, the cost is reasonable, and they were engaged for about $8,000 for 3 months of traffic noise monitoring and reporting. Although the town council believed NoiseNet could produce convincing evidence of noise problems, the council didn't believe any evidence, no matter how damning,
Oh,
to convince the sheriff to take action. So they decided it was a waste of money, and sadly, nothing happened. Nevertheless, I love the recommendation of noisenet.com. See if others can make use of that. And Jay said he's in Arcadia Lake, South Carolina. Thank you, Jay.
Jamie, is it okay
Yeah.
if I just very, very briefly show the noise app presentation for my student? You think that
I don't think we're gonna have time, Rick, but
okay?
what I'd like to suggest is we do it in a separate meeting.
Yes, another meeting.
Yeah.
We could talk
Yeah,
about
because I
noise.
think it's gonna absorb too much time.
I'll just say,
Um,
she looked at two noise apps, one of which is the NIOSH noise app, which people like. And of course, NIOSH, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, makes really good equipment. So NIOSH is one's free download, and the other one is the Noise Project. I just wanted to mention those.
right. Okay, Elaine asks, are there any recommendations for neighborhoods adjacent to airports? We've collected noise meter data, which is different than airports data reports.
I have to say, I have not been in the airport section of QC. I got involved in the leaded aviation because of my work with lead, but I'm not an expert on the aviation. I'm going to actually ask if Jamie wants to answer that question.
Yeah, Elaine, what I'm going to recommend, if you could write us separately, just send an email to info@quietcommunities.org. We have an aviation group and lots of experience in that group, and I think that they could be very helpful. Okay, I think this is the last question, Rick, from Peter. Has anyone brought successful nuisance suits against gas-powered leaf blowers? Also, injunction preferable to damage claim because the lawyer won't be provided by insurance company. Oh, a lawyer won't be provided by an insurance company. I think that's the interpretation, Peter. I'm sorry if I didn't get it right.
I'd rather have Peter talk about his case someday because he may be the first really successful one. I'm sure there are others, but I think Peter and I, we've had this conversation where you and I both have done the research trying to find cases that were really successful, and there are not many out there. So we're wishing you luck with your case. Um, I'm sure this is the Peter that I think it is, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to talk about what happens as a result. I think in your case, you have a strong case of bad faith by your neighbors. Maybe that will help.
Yeah. Okay, let's see.
Oh,
We
can I
talked,
just mention one thing about
sure.
the airport? About the airport, I know this is going to sound a little silly, but if we support electric airplanes with short hops, the problem is everybody wants to go long distance right away. They want to fly fast to wherever they want. If we can just not have to be that way and take short hops with electric airplanes, we can have a less polluting and quiet airport, air travel. And I won't mention blimps.
Technology, technology solutions
Yes.
are very helpful. Um, okay, we have about 5 minutes. Let's see. Did you answer James Johnson's questions?
Jamie,
Yeah,
excuse me, Jamie, there are a few questions in the chat, so you could
yeah,
just take a look there.
yeah. I was just looking, DC Dennison, it says, did you answer James Johnson's questions? I don't know if I saw that question in the chat.
There's
Uh,
one from Ann McPhillips and one from
Trish,
George.
can you go ahead and just ask them?
Sure. Ann McPhillips says that Georgia law doesn't have a provision to do anything about loud vehicles, and we've been working with legislators for 3 years. So I guess she's asking, for suggestions. And I know we have a call set up soon with our Quiet Streets program chair, so we can certainly touch on that. But Rick, if you have insights you'd like to add, please.
And I just want to add Ann's follow-up question here and combine it. Georgia passed a law that you can't outlaw gas-powered leaf blowers.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
was pretty
Right.
unbelievable.
That
Yeah.
Right. So to me, to me, this represents a psychological issue. People are so afraid of what the answer to the problem will be that they go to the extent of passing a law saying you can't even deal with this problem. And this is basically what we're seeing, with vaccines and with environmental issues, as a kind of a MAGA response to, don't bother me with this stuff. And so, how do you deal with that? I think, again, really making clear that everyone is educated on the fact that there's real harm here. And if you're effective at doing that, and also that there's so many things we can do to mitigate that harm. And so you put that together, if you can get that story out there, it's sort of like it's stupid not to do something. Why not? What are you afraid of? So they're basically doing this because they're afraid of something they shouldn't be afraid of. And you got to find a way to say that without insulting people.
And there's
Trish,
one.
if I can
Go
just
ahead.
mention Peter's comment. Peter's a physician. He is made a comment in the chat thinking about measuring heart rate, blood pressure, and behavior in kids exposed to military aircraft, F-35s at 110 decibels. How might such correlative soundscape data be used in a legal context?
I don't know the answer, but it sounds very interesting. And I know that there are cases of people disturbed by military aircraft and those really loud, the growlers. So
Yeah,
this
there's a
is a
big
definite issue.
lawsuit that's been
Whether we
going on
have
for 5 years now.
whether we have the medical data is another question. So I don't know the answer to that, but it seems worth exploring.
Yeah. Yeah, and Peter, let's talk offline about that too. I'm very interested in this.
And Jamie, that's a good point. If you have questions you want to send us in the wake of this event, we'd be happy to get some answers to you. Did you see the question? And perhaps this is the last one from George.
Yeah.
Is it more effective to use the public health or noise angle when trying to get leaf blower ordinances passed?
I think so, because I think that's an example of something people don't like. People don't like being visited by the police. And they think you pass this, the police are going to come, they're going to shut me down. It's extreme. If you make it a public health issue, then you can have an intelligent, well thought out response that involves all the things that you need to be doing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add a comment to that. We do a lot of work in this area with landscapers as well as communities and have done a lot of workshops. And it's very interesting for workers when they hear about the health impacts. We've heard from many workers, I had no idea. And from municipal officials as well. You know, it's the noise, it's, as Rick said, wearing a gas engine on your back, having uncombusted, toxic pollution coming out that we know is carcinogenic and terrible for heart health, respiratory health, etc. So it's, unfortunately, I so wish there was a quick fix. I never thought 10 years ago I'd still be arguing this, but it is about educating people. And we are seeing progress. More and more communities are looking to do something. More and more municipalities, institutions, gardens, parks. We just did a big county event, are looking to make this transition. So it's really getting the word out. We hope to get to some kind of critical threshold where it starts to become a new norm. But I'm not quite sure how close we are, far away we are from that.
So because we're at time, I'm just going to wrap it up and thank Rick. That was a fantastic presentation. And as you could tell from the questions coming in, a hot topic. We'll be sure to revisit noise in the law in some upcoming forums, perhaps quiet communities wide or just for members again. And Jamie, thanks for moderating. A few quick announcements before we go. Our next QC close-up event will be further into July. We're still confirming the exact date, but it's going to be with our QC advisor and the founder of Vermont-based Noise Pollution Clearinghouse, who is going to join us to discuss noise ordinances. So watch your inbox for more news on that. And one more exciting announcement. July will mark the launch of the first annual Quiet Communities virtual auction. And it's called Bid for Quiet. And we've curated a collection of mission-inspired items that I think are exciting. They include a 4-night stay at a gorgeous Colorado ski house, a Vermont weekend writers retreat. We're working on a bird walk for 5 with an expert and author. That's exciting. And a robotic electric lawnmower. So many other items, something to look forward to. And we hope you'll show your support by bidding and, of course, by sharing a link with your friends and colleagues. This is an important fundraiser for us. So lots to look forward to. As always, please reach out if you have questions, suggestions, ideas. We always welcome the chance to touch base with members. Thank you again and have a great evening. Take care. Quiet Communities.